Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and welcome to the breaking news. Today's breaking news brings us to Moscow with the breaking news that Ivan Popov, the commander of the 58th Combined Arms Army of the Russian Federation, was just arrested moments ago on suspicion of large-scale fraud, according to the Russian Federation's state media. According to the information that has been stated to the public by the Russian government, Ivan Popov is responsible for the embezzlement or the defrauding of the Russian government of approximately 100 million rubles, which is a fairly substantial sum even for Russian ruble figures, but nevertheless, it is something that is incredibly odd to hear considering the background and the story of Ivan Popov and the 58th Combined Arms Army. According to information that we know, the 58th Combined Arms Army was one of the first to enter Ukraine at the beginning of the 2022 invasion, and not only that, was the major army responsible for Ukraine's stoppage in the area of the Southern Offensive in 2023, and did not allow them to pass forward in larger numbers, holding the Surovikin line fairly well, but not long afterwards, Ivan Popov, the commander of that army, was dismissed by General Sergei Shoigu, well, the Minister of Defense Sergei Shoigu, now former Minister of Defense, due to Ivan Popov openly claiming that the Russian Federation had inadequate logistical procedures, inadequate logistical forces, and not only that, a very loose chain of command that led to a large amount of confusion and an overall lack of efficiency in terms of communication. For these reasons of Popov's public claims and criticisms of the Russian armed forces and how the government was operating the war, Ivan Popov was dismissed only a month after the 2023 Southern Offensive had come to a close, and he had been the one in charge of successfully stopping this Ukrainian offensive from reaching the cities of Tokmak and Melitopol. Since then, Ivan Popov has been in kind of the back burner a little bit, and it seems as though the Russian government has pretty much declared that he has been out of favor since his removal around the same time last year of being the general of the 58th Combined Arms Army, but now he has been arrested, and it is showing that this purge is starting to travel a lot deeper and a lot farther into the Russian government, and it isn't trying to remove commanders who may be incompetent, as Popov is probably one of the most competent commanders that we have seen on the Russian side over the course of this war. It appears that they are trying to go for people whose loyalty may be questionable to the central government and make examples of them so that way those who may be as little loyal to the Russian government will start to second guess their actions and maybe even try and change their ways to make themselves seem more favorable or recruit themselves more favor with the Russian central government. The situation is incredibly odd, and we will be waiting to see what happens. We do expect here on this channel that it most likely will move into some sort or some kind of a show trial where he'll most likely be sentenced to imprisonment for several years, much like many other generals in the past have already been. It also is showing that Putin is pretty much purging every single commander and every single leader in the Russian armed forces since the beginning of the war. Now with Sergei Shoigu gone, it seems as though no one is safe inside the Russian Federation's military, and it also seems as though they are going after anyone who may even have a shred of disloyalty to Putin's government. Meanwhile, in the area of the southern part of Russia near to the Rostov-on-Don region, we were able to hear that the nuclear missile drills of the Russians and Belarusians have started today. We were able to get some footage of this from Russian state media, and these nuclear drills are conducting tests on non-strategic nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons that will be used against conventional forces in Europe if the Third World War was to break out. We see them here loading the Iskander. The Iskander, while being an intermediate-range ballistic missile, can carry tactical nuclear warheads towards armed forces inside of Europe and other strategic sites and locations. We now see the door opening to the launcher. We see them showing the deployment of their forces here, showing how the drills are being conducted so far. And now we can see them once again on the move. We can also see them conducting some operations with a Tu-22 M3 backfire, a somewhat larger strategic bomber that would most likely be used to also fire different sorts of intermediate range or longer range ballistic missiles at targets inside of Europe with tactical nuclear warheads. We can also see the appearance of a MiG-31K right here. Two of these were just recently destroyed at Belbek Airfield in Sevastopol, but we can also see that this may have a Kinzhal hypersonic missile, as it does appear very similar to an Iskander mounted below it, once again showing that they are coming up with really every single way to test every single kind of weapons delivery system possible that would be used in a tactical nuclear exchange with the Western forces. This is once again showing us that the Russians are trying to make a clearer message that nuclear weapons are on the table. Although we know that their doctrine is a defensive one in nature, the fact that they are conducting a drill like this is provocative in its own right, considering that it is trying to send a message to the West, and also cause heightened fear that the drill may not be a drill, but it's a real deal occurrence. Of course, in this instance, we do know that it is, of course, a drill and nothing more, but still, the message is a very provocative one at best. Meanwhile, we were able to see that Kadyrov has appointed his son as the Minister of Physical Culture and Sports inside of Chechnya. We have not really gotten a lot of news on what his son will be doing. You can see him pictured right here. But when we asked Kadyrov's son about what was going to be going on with with his new position as the Minister of Physical Culture and Sports, he said, "Do the rar," and that was about it. So we weren't really able to get a lot more information from Kadyrov's son about what he's going to be doing as the Minister of Physical Culture and Sports, but still, nevertheless, an extremely weird case of nepotism by Ramzan Kadyrov and the Chechen government. Meanwhile, in the area of Sevastopol, we got a rare first sighting of a Ukrainian missile boat using a sort of an MLRS type battery delivery system, and we were able to see this on thermal camera near to the area of Sevastopol port. You can actually see that white streak down there in the water is the Ukrainian drone, and in a second it's going to fire off a massive volley of unguided rockets right there. We have actually never seen a weapon system like this before being used by the Ukrainians, and it's brought up a good deal of mystery as to what this drone is and what in the world did it even fire. We have really no idea. But it is showing that the Ukrainians are once again trying to flesh out their naval drone forces to be far more boundless in their abilities and far more capable in different kinds of missions that they may need to conduct as time keeps going by. Moving on from that little bit of news near to the area of Sevastopol, we were able to get the official confirmation today, just to back this up, that the Ksyklone, the Project 22-800 class missile cruiser that was inside of Sevastopol, has been destroyed and sunk according to the Russian Federation's government. We reported on that 48 hours ago, but we were able to get official confirmation at this moment, which is once again showing that that vessel is now at the bottom of the harbor and will not be usable by the Russian Federation's armed forces. Meanwhile, in the area of Luhansk, we were also able to hear news of a major plume of smoke that was rising into the sky from some kind of a possible missile strike by Ukraine. At the moment, it wasn't really known what the missile strike was, and so we withheld the reporting of this news yesterday, but we were able to find out as of today that plume of smoke that we saw was a command post that had been stricken that apparently was helping the Russian Federation to operate in this area. It was being used by the Russian Southern Group of Forces belonging to the Ministry of the Internal Affairs of the LPR that was struck with a Scalp EG missile. That was according to the telegram post made by the Russian Federation or a Russian Federation-aligned group, and we were also able to see that apparently the commander, Colonel General Gennady Anashkin, which is pictured here, may have been wounded in the strike that was conducted with the Scalp EG missile by Ukrainian forces. We believe that the missile was most likely fired off of an Su-24 Fencer that was flying somewhere near to the area of Kramatorsk, and the missile flew directly towards the headquarters, striking it and causing serious damage, and most likely causing a great amount of confusion amongst the Russian-aligned forces that would be in this area of the front line. Meanwhile, in the Kharkiv offensive, we can see that things are going incredibly poorly. Over the past 48 hours, we've seen practically no frontline changes to speak of at any larger number, which I'll be able to show y'all right here really quickly, and so let me refresh this, and I'll show y'all. This is what the front line is looking like as of the 20th of May. This is what it looked like on the 19th of May, and let me quickly put that down right there, but this is the 20th of May, this is the 19th of May, and this is the 18th of May. Russian frontline advances are incredibly small at this point. We are wildly disappointed at the number of forces that the Russian Federation has put into this offensive, and yet how little they've been achieving over a set period of time. Given that it's a 50,000 strong offensive, at the beginning of the war, these guys would have maybe been able to advance 7 miles per day until they hit major Ukrainian defenses about 4 days in. So far, we have seen they are hardly able to advance even a mile a day, in some instances at their best, and once again, they are going up against a smaller amount of Ukrainian reserve forces that moved into the area to try and at least slow the offensive until larger amounts of forces could be moved in. We were able to see that apparently the progress is so bad that the Russians have resorted to completely bombarding and destroying the town of Vovchansk to try and level it to make way for the Russian advance to eventually move over the rubble of Vovchansk and then further on south and into the area. We would assume that this will most likely not be successful at all, because it just seems as though this Russian offense is lacking complete momentum at all, and it doesn't seem as though it will be going anywhere, in short. And we will talk about that more on tonight's stream, but still, the results are incredibly disappointing. Moving on from that and down into the area of Donetsk, we were also able to see that an M1A1 has been outfitted with a large amount of Contact 1 ERA tiles on the lower hull, as well as the upper hull, and also the sides appear to have the Tusk armor additions that were provided by the United States. It's very interesting to see that the Ukrainians continue to modify Western main battle tanks with Contact 1 ERA tiles. We believe this may be to help out with FPV drone attacks and mitigate the damage to the main armor that would be sustained, and we also believe that this may just be in general protection against RPGs, although the front armor of the Abrams on the lower hull and the upper hull should be enough to protect against a basic RPG-7 warhead. It still appears that they're wanting to add additional defenses wherever they possibly can. Meanwhile, out of the Ukraine war, we've also been able to hear news of things that have been going on inside of Iran. It does appear that they are currently having a funeral for the now deceased Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, and of course, we don't really have much condolences to give, but we did see that the United Nations apparently lowered their flag to half-mast in honor of the death of Ebrahim Raisi, giving their condolences to the Islamic Republic of Iran, as well as the Iranian government, and it seems as though to be a little bit oddly placed. We would want to keep in mind that Ebrahim Raisi was a criminal against humanity is the best way to put it, having executed thousands of people by his own personal orders inside of Tehran in 5-minute trials. This guy is probably one of the most questionable leaders that ever existed in the modern day, and his passing is no unfortunate circumstance. However, it does seem that many formal institutions are trying to recognize his passing as such, but on this channel I will be quite clear. Usually we don't make a personal statement on these kinds of things. I have absolutely no condolences to give to the Iranian government or Ebrahim Raisi, as the man was a terrorist running terrorist regimes around the territory, or really the area of the Middle East. But with that, that is all of the major breaking news that we have for the moment. I thank you all so much once again for watching. I hope you all have enjoyed this news that we've been able to get out today so far, and if you all have, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below, and a huge shout out to all of our patrons who are currently there at the moment and helping us to make these kinds of video projects possible day in and day out. I thank you all so much once again for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.